5 minuti, dottore. Non avrà il tempo di fare la valigia.
Dite al colonnello che conti su di me.
In Bertolucci's Il Conformista, a fascist agent is tasked with assassinating his former professor within Mussolini's Italy. The cinematography within the movie has been described as some of the best of all time and a major influence on legendary directors Coppola and Scorsese. The movie was particularly praised for its use of light and shadow, which was shockingly dramatic and innovative for its time. How did cinematographer Vittorio Storaro come up with this groundbreaking visual style? The answer may surprise you. The short answer is, he didn't do it himself. Instead, his inspiration came all the way back from the 16th century, from the art of one specific painter. Today, a story about how a half-millennium-old Renaissance painting can influence a legendary 20th century film, and how that visual language can convey complex allegories of the human experience. As a cinematographer, Storaro had a very particular taste. He was in love with light. The book he wrote on modern cinematography is titled Writing with Light. And he drew particular inspiration from a Renaissance 16th century artist named Caravaggio who shared the same taste. He was a master of a technique called chiaroscuro. It is the specific usage of contrast between light and dark. Now, Caravaggio's chiaroscuro relies on the dramatic usage of shadow specifically to define the shapes and forms of subjects. By manipulating light and dark, artists could achieve a heightened sense of volume and spatial depth. And this combines with another habit of Caravaggio, absolute realism. He wanted to depict not just the ideal forms of people, but how they are in real life. He would go so far as to hire prostitutes and thieves to serve as the live models of his paintings, to make them more worldly. He refused to idealize the human form. Storaro's innovation was finding lessons from Caravaggio to import into modern cinematography, a perhaps counterintuitive action for the time. Storaro writes, Caravaggio never looked at the model directly while he was painting. He looked at the model in a mirror, a good-sized mirror. But I asked myself, why was he looking in a mirror? And I realized he was looking for a composition exactly the way we do when we look through a viewfinder or a monitor or viewing the subject on a screen. The frame is what sets off the subject from the surrounding reality. The composition is what creates visual art. In this way, Storaro calls Caravaggio the first cinematographer and implements his techniques. To see this, let's check out a specific scene. In this scene, the fascist agent Clerici is talking to an old professor with whom he is tasked with assassinating.
Ricorda, professore, appena lei entrava in aula, dovevamo chiudere I finestroni. Lei non sopportava tutta quella luce, quel rumore. L'ho capito dopo perché faceva così.
And wait, pause. Stop here. Check out this painting. Looks similar? Not a coincidence. Storaro says he drew inspiration from this Caravaggio painting titled La Vocazione di San Matteo. It's a religious painting about spiritual awakening, and thus it also illustrates the political and spiritual journey of Marcello Clerici. The light versus the dark, the chiaro versus scuro, reflects Clerici's alternating consciousness and unawareness regarding his political situation and repressed identity. Clerici, in this frame, is in shadow and thus in the darkness of knowledge. The professor, a wiser figure, is bathed in light. And now, let's listen in to what they have to say.
Immagina un grande sotterraneo a forma di caverna. All'interno, degli uomini che vi abitano fin dall'infanzia, tutti incatenati e obbligati a guardare il fondo della caverna. Alle loro spalle, lontano, brilla la luce di un fuoco. Tra il fuoco e i prigionieri, immagina un muro, basso, simile a quella piccola ribalta sulla quale il burattinaio fa apparire i suoi burattini.
Prigionieri incatenati di Platone.
E come ci somigliano.
Che cosa vedono?
Che cosa vedono?
Lei che viene dall'Italia dovrebbe saperlo per esperienza.
Vedono solo le ombre che il fuoco proietta sul fondo della caverna che è davanti a loro.
Ombre, i riflessi delle cose, come accade a voi altri oggi in Italia.
Se quei prigionieri fossero liberi di parlare, non chiamerebbero forse realtà quelle loro visioni?
Sì, sì, bravo. Scambierebbero per realtà le ombre della realtà.
The struggle to find truth is reflected in both the plot of the film and through this visual language of light. Dissecting this frame, the dim light creates shadows that represent the illusions and false beliefs Marcello has internalized, particularly those shaped by fascist ideology and his repressed desires. These shadows obscure the truth, much like the shadows in Plato's cave. The professor, on the other hand, represents the freed prisoner who has seen the light of truth. His presence and conversation with Marcello offer a glimpse of reality beyond the shadows, challenging Marcello to question his beliefs and the ideological framework he lives within. And so, through Caravaggio's Chiaroscuro, which amplifies the theme of light versus dark, Storaro depicts how Marcello, a conformist, is both physically and literally in the dark of knowledge, the dark of fascism, and the dark of Plato's cave. The professor is the anti-conformist, a light-filled, light-silhouetted being who has escaped from the shackles of the cave and is attempting to lead the others to enlightenment. In the poem Ode to a Grecian Urn, John Keats writes about the remarkable ability of a series of still sketches on the side of an urn to elicit a lifelike, dynamic, and moving scene. In this vein, scholar James Monaco writes that the purpose of still works of art is often to depict a moving story. In that sense, then, movies simply fulfill the destiny of painting. Ultimately, through Storaro's brilliant use of chiaroscuro, Il Conformista doesn't just honor the legacy of Renaissance painting, it fulfills this destiny, transforming the timeless art of light and shadow into a moving cinematic masterpiece that illuminates the darkest corners of the human experience.